Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I'm your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our program today. If you have been with us for the last year or so, what you will realize is that we have been delving deep into the subgenre of found footage films. Not only because I personally love found footage films, but also because we are working on a found footage book that will hopefully be out at the end of this year / beginning of next year for your amazing perusal. We are trying to branch out into many different things, and our found footage book will be our first side project that we hopefully will get to you by the end of the year. So we hope you will enjoy that. But until the book comes out, we do hope that you will enjoy this episode among all the other episodes we've done on all the found footage films we've already tackled in the last year and a half. So let's get on with the show. Now, what I love to do is me and a special guest just sit down and kind of have a conversation, critique, analyze a single individual film. We hope that you enjoy the conversation, even if you don't enjoy the movie we're talking about, which may be the case for today's movie. It may not, depending on your outlook on this found footage film. And I will get to the title for right after I introduce my special guest, which is Sarah Panazzo. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us on the program today.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin.
Now, Panazzo has not been doing a lot of our found footage films over the last year. That would be Jim Adams, if you are been listening. But it's good to have a new face and talk, because she has talked on some of our favorite ones. But The Devil Inside may not be one of her favorites, or mine, or yours, but it's interesting that we're going to be talking about it today. So, with that precursor to this conversation, Panazzo, when did you first experience this found footage film, and what were kind of your general interpretations of it, so to speak?
So I remember seeing ads for this because you've got the creepy nun and then you've got the woman with the cross on her lower lip. And I had not seen the movie until recently for the podcast. And I started off and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good. And then the ending, it just kept kind of getting sillier and sillier and just dumb. And then that ending just hardcore, like, I will never watch this movie again.
Okay, interesting. The my interpretations are a little bit odd, because I saw this film at the theater, and I thought it was a clever idea at the time to do a found footage film based around, demon possession, exorcist type of stuff. Now, unfortunately for the genre, at the time this movie was being released, there were a plethora of found footage films that kind of delved into every aspect of the horror genre known to mankind. This one I remember being extremely what do you call it? Profitable. I say profitable
Yes.
because the budget was really low, but it was not well liked at
Yeah, it
all.
was $1 million budget and they grossed 101.8 million.
It was that weird thing where you heard it made so much money and it was not liked by anyone. I don't know anyone who actually gave this film good reviews. Now, I am under the same thing as you are, Panazzo. When I watched the movie, I really liked the concept. I really liked the first 2/3 of the film, but the last third just rubbed me the wrong way, and then the abrupt ending really just sealed the bad deal for me.
Yeah.
Now, I tried to give the movie. I've watched the movie several times. I have not said I'm never going to watch again. Again, there are other found footage films that I will not watch again. But because I love the genre, I like going back to rewatching films that I may not have enjoyed the first time around to see if I can my opinions will change. And I do like the concept of our main character, and I do please forgive me, audience, if I kind of get the character names mixed up, because even while watching the film, I got the Isabel and Maria characters kind of screwed up in my head.
Hmm.
But Maria is the mother and Isabella is the daughter. I had to keep putting that in my head because Maria is what we start off with the movie, and unfortunately, it starts off with I think it's the 911 call, which it's clever. It
Yeah.
starts off with the 911 call. It's very clever. with them with them saying there's an emergency, and then of course what we see is the footage of police cameras as as we are shown this room where everyone has been slaughtered except for Maria Rossi or Rossi, I forget. Uh, and she is the person who had gone an exorcism, but everyone who was involved in the exorcism is found dead, and she is accused of having committed the murders herself. But because of the nature of what is happening, and she was in theory going through an exorcism, she is not actually found guilty, but she is given to, is it directly the Vatican?
I think so, or it's like a mental thing run by the Vatican or a bunch of.
It's the Centrino mental hospital. I couldn't remember it, but she is given over custody to them for observations now, and care, instead of going to prison for murder. Now, this being said, it's years later and she's been forgotten about more or less, except for by her daughter Isabella, who doesn't know all the nature of why and what happened to her mother because she was too young at the time. And so the film is kind of her exploration of finding out what happened to her mother, the truth behind everything, and the nature of exorcism. I actually really like that concept. That's a really cool concept to hinge a movie on.
Yeah, it's full of really good concepts that were not followed through with, because there's a bunch of little things even sprinkled throughout the movie that makes you question what else was going on. But we can get more to that later. But no, I think it is a fascinating version of found footage. I mean, the only other one I think we've really seen like this is The Last Exorcism.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I wish that we had more found footage like this. Otherwise, The Taking of Deborah Logan, that can also be
a great one,
kind of like that as well. But yeah, it just, somebody said it online and I had to save it. And I was like, on one hand, it nails the creepy atmosphere. The exorcism scenes are intense,
mm-hmm.
and the found footage style makes it feel disturbingly real. Performances were genuinely chilling, and I found myself completely drawn in during the first half, but then it just falls apart. And that's 100% where like it had so many good concepts. Everything was so well done, and then you just get to that ending and it just kind of nosedives.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the fact that when Isabella gets there with her camera guy, who I can't remember his name.
Michael?
Is it Michael? Yes, Michael Schaefer. That's one of the things that I had when rewatching it. I had to keep all the different names of the characters separate, because the two priests that Isabella and Michael encounter when they arrive there and they go to the school, the exorcism school, to sit in on a class was very interesting. It's not like something we've seen before, because what she mentions is that the school, the church, allows outsiders to sit in on these classes, and I was like, oh, that's a interesting concept. That's a really
and so that's a real thing, and I think that's how they got the basis for the movies. The one of the director or the writer, whichever one started, he discovered that they actually do have a school for exorcisms, and then kind of took it and ran with it. But almost everything else that they talk about in the movie is completely wrong.
Well, that's a little disheartening, but yes. I mean, it's disheartening only because you tell me that that's actually something that that actually happens at the school, because I kind of like offhandedly remember a comment reading somewhere that the church has been having more schools to teach more priests about exorcism and to be exorcists, but it's one of those things that you kind of like throw away because nah, they're not doing that, are they? Nah. That's how I took it anyways.
Yeah, April 16th, 2018, BBC has 150 priests from 50 countries.
Oh.
And then APRA, the Ateneo Pontifico Regina Apostolorum, has the course on the ministry of exorcism and deliverance.
Okay. Well, that could mean that this was very topical in the year it was released. When was this released again? I did not say that. 2012.
Yeah.
So it's roughly 16 something odd years old, 14.
Yeah.
I'm
And
losing track.
this is like the legit Italian ministry for the Vatican that has open courses and a whole like facility and institute. So I'm gonna have to dive into that at some point too.
Yes, I like. So for me, I've read several nonfiction books about it. William Peter
Mhm.
Blatty has written some nonfiction books in addition to writing the original The Exorcist, because he was really fascinated with that whole ideal and culture there. So there's some great books out there about that. But I didn't know that, like in practice, in real life, that that's something that a normal person could go and observe. That's fascinating to me, because a lot of
Mhm.
the things about exorcism, you kind of see those really bad movies out there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
bad exorcism movies out there, but there's so many. You kind of have a bad taste in your mouth. The Exorcist is still one of my all-time favorite movies, because they kind of made it realistic. And they used like modern in the film they used medicine and technology as well as religion
Yeah.
to tell its story, and so it makes it more believable. Whereas there's a whole hell of a lot of movies out there about exorcism that are completely unbelievable, and they, you know,
Well, and I think that's one of the fun histories of the horror of exorcism is a lot of times it's like when you look back on the history of vampires and werewolves and stuff like that, like it's interesting how those concepts came about. And I know that this kind of started as like a religious thing,
mhm.
but a lot of mental health issues, people in earlier times thought that they were possessed or cursed by witches or whatever. So the whole thing of exorcising a person and it not taking because it is a mental disorder, I did love that that's how they tied this in with this. And they actually did have the whole like diagnosing people based on their like psychiatric needs.
Mm.
So that's where it had some good, interesting stuff. The fact that they like watched the eye pupil sizes
Yeah.
based on dilation was fascinating. I thought it was brilliant. The heart monitors, everything. But it all, it's a shame that most of the good parts of this movie are laid waste because of the ending.
So, before we get there, we do want to get to some of the other characters, Ben and David. I had to remember the two different types of priests. They're like priests still in training, although some of them, David is the one still actually practicing at a church,
Yes.
which actually plays into the
Yes. But
plot
he is
later on.
also, he has a doctor background.
Mhm.
So that's where all the medical stuff comes from with their whole setup.
Yeah. But when Isabella has her first, like, I guess it's like a little lunch or something, with them to kind of pique their interest and actually get a lot of the background information about what exorcism is and all that type of stuff. They recommend that she actually see a real exorcism to actually understand more about what happened to her mother. Uh,
Yes.
and so that's interesting that the film takes that ideal. Although I am trying to remember if she goes sees her mother first or after she watches them do an exorcism.
Um, I think that she goes to see her mother first,
Yeah,
and there's the freak out, and that's when she decides they need to do an exorcism or something. So then they want
yeah,
it's
okay,
she shows them the footage in their apartment.
yeah, that's right. So she goes to see her mother, and the footage that Michael and her have been recording, they she shows it to David and Ben, and of course they not only say that she needs to actually witness an exorcism, but also to get a second opinion on
Yeah.
what's going on with her mother. If they can get a second opinion that goes their way, they might be able to move her to a different facility where she can actually get help instead of just being stuck in a
Mhm.
facility that doesn't care, who is completely forgotten about her. At this point, it could go either way. You could believe that she's either mentally unstable or that she actually is possessed. Because we're learning about what's going on from Isabella, who is also learning what's going on with her mother. It makes it a much more personal story to have it be a mother-daughter relationship. And it's estranged, obviously, because she has not seen or had interactions with her mother for so long before all this happens.
Mhm. Well, and it's fascinating because it ties into that whole psychiatric part that I was talking about. Because at one point they mentioned that this is her seventh different diagnosis, and they diagnosed her with DID. And it kind of makes sense because she has the multiple personality change a couple times
Mm-hmm.
throughout the film, which we then learn can possibly be considered speaking in tongues. Because apparently you speak with a Brooklyn accent, all of a sudden you're speaking in tongues. Um, but whatever. But early on, they also talk about in the classroom when they're talking about that one possession, they talk about multiple demonic possession, which can lead to transference, which is when demons can jump from one person to another. So that's already like a Chekhov's gun that's just kind of waiting there in the middle that they start with from the beginning.
Yes. That's a lot. And don't get me wrong, as much as we don't really care for the ending, they do set it up like a typical film with all this foreshadowing. These are important elements of the story that play off later in the film, especially with the demonic possession and transference. It's not something that I've seen a lot in demon possession movies, except for maybe the end of The Exorcist. Obviously,
Mhm.
that's one of the big ones right there. When Pazuzu or the devil transfers from Reagan to Father Karras. I can't remember his
Yes.
name now. All right.
Yes.
Uh,
It's
uh,
the old priest, not the young priest.
and then what happens is in this film, it's an ideal that's planted in your head early, really early, and hopefully you'll remember it later when it actually happens. I can appreciate how much this film tries to follow like your Hollywood setup with story and execution. A lot of found footage don't. They kind of just meander through their story and plot until they get to the big, the ending. So I can appreciate that. Because this is a film that by all intents and purposes is like a little cousin of The Exorcist until the end,
Mhm.
of course. So it does bring in a lot of those themes that we've seen in The Exorcist as a found footage film. Um, and so that's what we're watching. And when we get to the point where they want to do an exorcist or they want to evaluate, not have an exorcist of
Mhm.
the Maria character, but evaluate her, it does not go as they think it should go.
Mhm.
I'm trying to remember as this is going along, some of the notes I wanted to make sure of is that what was it? When they talk about Maria, they think it's an odd exorcism. There's something not right with her exorcism. It's different than anything that
Mhm.
Ben and David have encountered before, but they don't know what it is yet. But as an audience member and you watch the film, you realize that it's not just your typical possession. I'm trying to think of the word possession because she is revealed that there is what's the best way to say legion in this whole conversation.
I mean, it is like, whereas some of the other ones, they're always like, okay, well, it's just a single demon. This one is like, it's got a demon and his legion or his like
Yeah.
knights, whatever. So it's like the head demon and all of his little associates are also in there. Um, which that whole possession scene where they're doing the testing inside the like medical facility is
Hmm.
probably one of my favorite bits because she goes from being like normal and then she completely passes out. And while they're talking, you can see her in the background where there's like a fly that flies out of her nose or her mouth. And I was like, oh God, something's about to happen. And they have that camera screen on her eye. And you can see that screen with her eye closed. Then all of a sudden, her eye opens and looks directly at them through the screen. And I was like, this is a great, great shot. The way it is acted is phenomenal. and the whole scene is just insane. And then there's the whole like blackout of Data in the middle for a couple seconds.
Mm-hmm. Now, throughout the recording that they're recording Maria, when Isabella and the team get back and they go over the footage, I want to make mention of the fact that Ben is doing research while he's looking at the recordings, and he comes across four distinct voices on the recording, which plays into the part of the whole Legion ideal, which means that she may have four demons within her. We don't usually see that type of aspect in a possession, and that's why I made notes to make note of that. I think, with the exception of maybe what Exorcist 3 that mentions Legion, we don't really
Mhm.
see, like, it's easier just to have the one demon and them try to figure out the name of the demon to thwart the demon. And this one has four different demons because there's four distinct voices within her. When that scene comes up, they realize that they may be a little bit over their heads because everything they've done, Ben and David, by the way, have done before then has been relatively mundane compared to what they are experiencing with the Maria character. Um, and then of course, this leads into Michael feeling a little left out of the group because it has become something. It like before this, Michael, the the videographer, the camera guy, we don't see him much at all. Like we don't. He's behind the camera the entire film. But at this point, when this happens, he starts feeling a little left out, which makes sense because he becomes more of a character in the film after this point. That
Yeah. It's also interesting how the characters change from the beginning to the end, because at the beginning he's more worried about getting enough good footage for his film, and she's worried about her mom. And there's a whole scene at the beginning after she sees her mom where she's sobbing. He's like, man, we got some great footage.
yeah,
And then it gets towards the end here where all of a sudden the priests are arguing with each other over, one wants to spread it to the media, one doesn't, and then they still want to help, or Isabella just wants her mom to be saved, and Michael's kind of left as like the neutral party who's like, wait, this is super fucked up.
yeah. Because their ideal is that they can use the footage to help get Maria in a real hospital. That is like that's what they Ben and David want to do in helping Isabella is to use the footage that she's recording to get her mother into a facility that can actually help her. That in and of itself it gives the filming of everything a purpose as well.
Mm-hmm.
They've been documenting this, and it can be used as a means to help her mother. A lot of the times when we watch found footage films, some people don't really know why the characters actually keep recording or why they start recording in the first place. But this actually gives that idea a reason for the whole film to be the be anyways. I guess is the best way to say that. Um, and not only that, I want to make sure that we mention that this is the part where Isabella actually starts talking back to the camera. I think I'm trying to remember how often she does that towards in the last act. But before then, it's more or less the camera's following her, but she's now talking back to the camera, and she's not the only person that does that. At this, as the film progresses, the camera becomes an actual character within the story,
Yes.
which is how it falls into the final moments of the film. Why they have to do that, because before then, the camera is just like a voyeur recording everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting how they set up those scenes, like how Michael does constantly set up multiple cameras for the exorcisms that they view so that they do have that proof. So you are seeing it from those cameras he sets up.
Mhm.
And like you're seeing him set up those cameras from another camera. So it's very, it covers that. Whereas like, what was it? As above, so below. It's like, at what
Yeah.
point did he drop the camera and somebody managed to pick it up, or all of a sudden they're still filming, but nobody has a camera?
Mhm.
So it all makes sense as a found footage film, what is exactly happening, and that they can see these things.
Yeah, and it also I forgot to mention that with what you're saying when you mentioned that they all the characters start to changing. The most glaring change is in the David character. David starts acting weird, and everyone starts noticing he's acting weird, and then of course he goes really weird when
The
uh
baby
baby
baptism
baptism.
scene, which who didn't see that coming? I mean, I was expecting something whether like he was going to burst into flames, touching holy water, but or drowning the baby, which is 100% what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of odd because what I'm thinking is I'm trying to figure out how much influence I'm just gonna call it the Demon Legion for right now.
Yeah.
Legion has on him at this point because it doesn't like, is he just influencing him? Is he possessing him? It's one of those weird things that we see enough strangeness, but we don't like 100% know which is which, really.
Yeah, because he has those moments of clarity where he's just like he eats soup or something in the dark. And then he's like, "No, can you turn it off? I've got a headache." And it's like there's little bits where you see him, or especially during the last bits of segment with him, where you do see him as himself, but you can kind of tell nobody is quite themselves at that point, which hints at the end of the movie.
Mm.
Because
Oh,
you
yeah.
see the little bits with Isabella, you see the little bits with Michael, and you're like, are they just being weird, or is some are all of them having demons inside of them at this point?
Yeah, it's interesting because the only one who doesn't really readily get possessed in the movie or gets influences as badly as everyone else would be the Ben character. Um,
Well, and that's what I always talk about much earlier, where it leaves these open questions that makes you wonder what else they were trying to tell,
mm,
because you find out he has the whole history of being an exorcist. His uncle was an exorcist. At one point during one of the exorcisms, one of the demons say that he did something he can't get back in the good graces of the church with. And it's like, well, what did he do? I don't know if it was like something involving his uncle, if he intentionally let him die or something else, or if he killed somebody during an early
mm,
exorcism. But it leaves a lot of open-ended questions that could have been followed through for a great ending.
you're right. I completely forgot about that aspect of the movie. You're right about that. Um, I don't know, but yeah, yeah, that you make a valid point. That could have solidified some ideals towards the third act that made it a much cleaner. I'm gonna say cleaner third act.
Yeah, because like they hint about it in the car
Yeah.
with certain things that they say that it is all about Ben the entire time, but they don't ever say why. Like at first I didn't know if it was going to be about Isabella getting the demon in her, and then it was like some weird thing where all of a sudden she was the daughter of the devil or something. And then Ben kind of had his story. So between those two things, they could have had some really wonderful endings. And instead, we're left with an open pit that doesn't answer anything.
Uh, that leads us to probably the most violent kind of sequence in the film with David, because they're all back at their, I guess it's their flat, their apartment where they're
Mhm.
going through the information, and this is right after the botched baptism, and David's actually acting very weird, and then of course the police end up showing up to either question or take David in for what he did. Um,
Well, and this whole scene is, like you said, very violent. If you are not good with suicide, it starts off with him like slitting his wrists, it ends with him shooting himself in the head. And it's just a very violent sequence overall in a kind of tame movie. Like you see a lot of weird body contortion and such like that, but you don't get that kind of violence
no,
throughout the entire movie.
no. I thought the same thing as you did when I saw that. I was like, oh shit, okay, that's where we're going with this film. And then of course after that, you know, what was it? This is where it goes to oh my God, can't think of her name. Isabella. Isabella
Yeah.
acting like she's having a seizure. Um
Yes.
now they don't now at this point they don't know exactly what's going on, but I think Ben at this point is still thinking about the transference and
Yeah,
all.
he starts figuring it out,
Yeah, yeah.
because something else happened that kind of set him off of like, oh God, it's not just him. And so then Isabella has the seizure. They go to the hospital and she ends up attacking like the entire ER room that she's in. And that's also like, I think she like bites somebody's ear off or something like that, or attacks their face with her teeth. Um, but it's very bloody. And then they try to get her out because they know she needs to be exercised then.
Yeah.
And that's how they end up in the car.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the Ben character, while the chaos is going, Ben tells the doctors to take care of all the victims of Isabella, and that's how they try and get Isabella out of the hospital. Uh,
Hmm.
and then, of course, what happens is in the car, and strange things happen to Isabella in front of a lot of witnesses that obviously are not normal.
Yeah.
But Ben and Michael managed to get her into the car and to drive away. Now, I'm thinking they think that she needs to go through an exorcism herself at this point. I don't know if they know where they're taking her at this point. That's a weird
Yeah.
thing for me. It's
Because I
like,
don't think they're going back to the apartment at that
yeah,
point because that's surrounded by cops because of what happened earlier. And they
yeah.
weren't even like cops, it was like the Vatican police. Um, but yeah, it's like, where do they think they're going? Are they going to a church? Are they going straight to the Vatican? What is going on? But like, Michael's driving the car and Ben has Isabella in the back.
Hmm.
So you're just watching them try to control her while she loses her shit.
And then all of a sudden we see that Michael is taken over. Uh,
Yes.
we see by the demonic presence, so to speak, or it's been transferred. We I kind of get confused on what the devil or the demon or legion is influencing versus who he possesses.
Well, and so that's why I think when the mother, Maria, had four in her, she
Uh-huh.
still obviously has one by the time they're done. Isabella has one, David had one, and I think Michael did too. So I think that three of them came out and went to the three of them because that's when they all start being weird. Where Mike or David is drawing all the attention to him because he is being super, super weird. But there's like Isabella's talking to herself in the camera at one point.
Yes.
Michael was doing something else too that was also very non-Michael-ish. And I think one of them had an accent at one point. And that's where I was like, okay, I think they all have demons in them at this point.
You know what? That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, but that would make much more sense because I was confused on whether or not the Legion had possessed them or if they were just being influenced. But it makes more sense since we are told that there are four demons within Maria that the
Mhm.
demons are splitting out. That makes much more sense for me.
And
Uh
see, like I said, there's some great ideas with this movie, but then they crash the car because Michael is taken over. He full on plows into something, crash the car, and the movie's over.
yes, the movie's over. Now, when I was in the theater watching that, it's very rare, but I have not heard so many audience members be pissed off and really readily like they say it out loud. They're like, "What? What? Like, is that how it is? What?" Yeah, I mean, they're like literally it ends, and then a few seconds later the lights come out, and people are like, "What the hell? The movie just ends?" It was
Well, and it was, and even worse, they put a freaking website on the end of the movie then to be like, to find out more about what happened, go to this website. And the website doesn't even exist anymore.
I've never gone to the website. I was when I first saw the movie, I was kind of miffed by the way it ended, and then I eventually did pick it up on Blu-ray to kind of give it a second try, and I was still pissed off at the ending. And then, of course, I rewatched it for the podcast, and like you just one of the things my sticking points was about whether or not the other characters were possessed or influenced. I like your interpretation better than mine ever was, that the demon split off from Maria. I That concept makes much more sense for me now.
Like I said, there's some very smart things in there. There's some clearly really good endings that they could have gone with, and they didn't. And the only more frustrating thing than that end are how slow the goddamn credits roll. I sat there watching the entire credits thinking maybe something else is going to happen, and nothing did. And I was like, these are so slow.
Dude, I've never watched the credits for this film. I have no idea, but that's actually hilarious that you say that. I
It made me so mad. I was like, I sat there and watched this awesome movie just for it to fucking nosedive. Try to send me to a website that doesn't exist, and then they have the slowest credits ever.
oh, it's probably to extend the runtime too. They probably
Probably because it
yeah.
wasn't a very long movie.
No, it's not very long. And to be honest with you, with the way the film is formatted, the exorcism, or the observation that turns into a mini exorcism with Maria, is like 2/3 of the way into the movie, and then you have everything else that happens after that. Um, and so it's one of those things where when you're watching the movie, you're waiting for the final third act to have an exorcism in it, and you're thinking that that's what's going to happen. You're thinking that Ben and Michael are taking Isabella. We're going to see an exorcism in
Mhm.
the final act of this movie. And then when it shuts off and the camera dies, it's a complete and utter letdown.
Yeah. It was actually, it received universally negative reviews from both critics and audiences, has been cited as one of the worst films of all time. Some outlets even published articles discussing whether it is the worst ending in cinema history. And this was all made in hopes that it would replicate the success of Paranormal Activity. And it's like, you just destroyed the entire found footage community after this.
And the thing is, this wasn't the only film that did that. There was a plethora of them that made a lot of money, but audiences really, and most of the people I've spoken to hated the ending for most of
Yes.
these found footage films, because for some reason they were trying to replicate the whole thing that like Blair Witch Project does with the ending, but that's a much more satisfying ending than what most of these more modern
Yes.
filmmakers crafted.
Yeah,
Like,
because one of the reviews I saw was like Blair Witch literally had twigs and people making noises off of the camera view, and it succeeded much better than this full exorcism movie. And it's like that thing had like no budget and was amazing. This had $1 million budget. And yes, they made 101 million,
yeah,
but they were out for like a week and it was at the top just that weekend. And then it bottomed out and nobody went to see it the second week.
yeah. Yeah. That was one of the reasons I know that the found footage genre crashed so fast. Is like when it was popular, people went to go see it the first week. When people realized how disappointing the movie was, it like I think this movie like went like lost its like 89% or something. It was really high the second week that it lost its audience because of the bad reviews. And yeah, it was really high. Um, I saw the movie when it first came out, the weekend it came out, because I was like that back then. But I didn't recommend it to anyone. I was like, there's yeah. The only, in my theory, bad found footage movie that I know is bad, but I still recommend it to people is The Gallows. But I know people don't like The Gallows.
I still need
Well,
to watch
we have discussed that one on the program, and
that
we
one.
have
I haven't
discussed.
seen it yet.
Yeah, I have said how much I like the movie and for what reasons. Um, but this one was one of those found footage films that came out at the time that had a great concept, and for some reason, no other movie
Mhm.
disappointed me as much as this one did with the ending. And I've seen a lot of bad and questionably bad films out there, including found footage films. But this one right here, I think it still boggles the studio's mind how it made as much money as it did, even if for as bad as it was. Like, like it made a ton of money. Like, I think the concept people were craving like an Exorcist movie, a good Exorcist movie, and we thought, or they thought they were producing one, and audiences thought they were getting one, and Exorcist movies are hard. Hell, look at the Exorcist franchise. The only one that was popular and profitable was the first one. You know, and that's what, 7 films in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I lost track. 7. Yeah, I stopped counting those
Yeah.
damn movies.
I
So
was looking just now too, and I feel like it is near the end of some of the big 2000s found footage films because this is 2012, right?
Yeah.
And there's like Paranormal Activity 2 was in 2010 and we had Troll Hunter in 2010. But I'm trying to see what else there was around that time and it's like nothing that I have given the time to. Grave
No,
Encounters was 2011,
yeah, well, we had Grave Encounter.
but
Of course, there was Devil's Due. There was The Last
mhm.
Exorcism. There was the
Well, those are all like
Phoenix
early
Forgotten.
2000s, right around this time, like right after 2010, you just start getting the Paranormal Activity movies for the most part.
Yeah,
You don't get anything original and new, and this one was, but
yeah.
yeah, VHS came out that same year, and so did Chronicle, and those are the
Chronicle.
only two big ones.
Yeah, and Chronicle was big in hindsight. No, I don't think anyone was expecting Chronicle to be big.
No.
Chronicle was like that fluke. I know that I think they tried a couple of non-horror films like along Chronicle that same time period. I just never saw them. But yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
now we
it's
don't get
weird. There's a ton of found footage films that came out in 2012, and there's maybe like three or four good ones because The Bay also came out that year.
Yep. Well,
So yeah,
and Jason Blum produced a shit ton of them, or he released a bunch of them. He did produce some, and then others his company purchased and released. So I had to make a distinction on that. So I mean,
mhm.
that's how Paranormal Activity saw the light of day. It was purchased, and then they changed the ending. And then we have a what 7 or 8 franchise movie now that Jason Blum has done, and he doesn't
Yeah.
even know why he did the last one, other than that he had to and for money. And they're still making another one, so you could never keep a franchise down, no matter how deep a grave the sequels have dug.
I
Uh,
mean, look at it this way. Freddy and Jason always come back, and so do Michael Myers. So they're just gonna keep making them. I mean, hell, Saw is dead, and they're still making Saw movies.
died in the third movie and they keep making movies. I laugh at that one. I was like, dude, you know you killed your killer in the third movie, yet you're on like number 11.
Yeah.
uh
Um, I do know that the writers did have a quote. They did defend themselves by saying that they knew the unconventional closure would draw criticism, but that it felt authentic to us. Sometimes real life doesn't follow a perfect structure. Things aren't always wrapped up and resolved when or how you'd like them to be. All of us enjoyed leaving things open-ended. We thought it was visceral and we thought it was unique.
well, it's definitely unique.
Yeah, 100%.
I think of this as the ending is very anticlimactic to what they have set up.
Yes.
Um I feel that way a lot about a lot of movies that kind of build you up and then the ending is like fizzles out or takes the wrong turn. Now I'm gonna say a recent movie that I watched because I really hated this fucking movie. It angered me how the movie ended because it was so anticlimactic, and that has to be for 2025 the I Know What You Did Last Summer fucking reboot legacy fucking movie. I couldn't. Dude, that movie, the ending is so fucking anticlimactic. It's ridiculous. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Who wrote this piece of shit movie? Uh, I don't know if you've seen it yet, Panazzo, yet or not.
I haven't, and I wasn't planning on it. I watched the first I Know What You Did Last Summer like years and years ago when it came out, and I recently rewatched it again. And I was like, man, I don't miss any of this.
I saw the first two. Have still never seen the third one. I gave the reboot of freaking a pass. I said I'll go see that one. I waited. I saw it thinking it might at least be entertaining. It's one of the worst reboots, legacy sequels I have ever seen with wasted potential and the most bland cast I could ever think of. And I'm like, when Freddie Prinze Jr. is the best actor in your fucking movie, there has to be a problem. Uh,
Yes.
but and not to say anything wrong about Freddie Prinze Jr. Freddie Prinze, if you're listening to this, You did a really good job in the shitty ass movie. Yeah, I'm like, dude, this is like my jaw dropped. Like when I watched this movie at the theater and all the people surrounded me were watching The Devil Inside and they saw the ending and their jaws dropped. I watched I Know What You Did Last Summer and my jaw dropped because the ending was so fast and stupid. And then they have to add another villain to make the fucking movie make sense. And that whole sequence was dumb as shit just so we could get Jennifer Love Hewitt back in the film for another 5 seconds. And then there's another sequence after that to say, oh, we're setting this up to be a trilogy to bring back Brandy's character. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Hey, all these celebrities need money.
I'm like, I was like, my jaw dropped and just wouldn't go back up until I turned off the movie. I was like, oh my God. And so I can understand, like every other audience member, when they were watching this film, The Devil Inside, your jaw dropping and you being so utterly disappointed because you had a great setup, a great kind of progression, and then it falls flat starting after David and the baptism. I thought that was really effective. But then it fizzles. It fizzles because you're expecting a fucking exorcism, and you don't really get it. It's like what people felt about the original version of Legion, The Exorcist 3. Is like there was no exorcism at the end of the original version of that fucking movie. The studio says, how can we have an exorcist movie and not have an exorcism at the end? That's how I feel about this movie. You know? By the way, The Exorcist 3, I like both versions. I really do enjoy both versions. Just the one with the exorcism and the original version. I think they're both enjoyable to me, but I just think that's a good movie that no one appreciated. So there you go.
I do have one more thing about this movie that I would love to talk about because I didn't realize who it was. But the character of Rosa Sorlini is played by this wonderful actress named Bonnie Morgan. And she is a contortionist. And she really got started in horror because she was in The Ring 2 as Samara. She did the whole well crawling sequence. And she has done so many character things since then. She was one of the Burrowers in The Burrowers.
Oh, you know how much we love that one, everybody.
Oh, I know. She's been in a couple of different things like Fright Night. She was one of the vampires. Let's see. In Rings, she was Samara again. She's been in a bunch of stuff like Star Trek, Discovery, and Series of Unfortunate Events. But she has done stunts and character work like that now for quite a few horror movies. She was in like Hellboy 2 as a stunt person, and I believe I saw that she was in The Last Witch Hunter. I think she was the witch.
That was fun. I don't know if that's a good movie. That movie's so fun.
Well, I know, but she's talented.
Yeah.
Like her whole scene was very for her contortion stuff. But yeah, I did not know that she was Samara when I watched this the first time, and it totally makes sense because she's been doing this since she was a child.
Wow. That is actually interesting. I did not know that. And I love the American Ring films, the first two anyways. I don't remember the third one. Sorry, I don't remember Rings. First two I really enjoyed both of those. I thought they were really well done. Shit, we need to talk about those on our podcast. We haven't talked about any of the Ring or Ringu films yet. We're gonna have to get around to those.
Yes.
Is that your final thought for this movie?
It is my final thought. That was the one other thing that I had to mention because she did a phenomenal job.
Oh, shit. All right. So I want to thank you, Panazzo, for joining us on this conversation about The Devil Inside, a found footage film in which we saw some good elements and some horrendously bad elements. Normally, for me, for found footage films, they can either be really good or really bad, not have elements of both contained within them, which makes it a film that I think people talk about it a lot, but not for the right reasons.
Mhm.
This film is more talked about than I could tell you about The Devil's Due, which was also profitable, and a ton of other movies that were also profitable, but not always for the right reasons. So, with that, what we love to do for everyone in the audience is we love to rate the movies. We rate them from 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being amazing. And what we do is we take an object or we take a quote or a saying out of the movie to attribute to our rating. Where on the spectrum, Panazzo, do you put this movie, and what object, saying, or quote do you attribute to your rating?
Um, I'm gonna have to put it at the first part without the ending. I would say is a solid 4 out of 5
Okay.
eyeballs on camera monitors. You get to that ending and you got nothing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna split it up for me. I'm just gonna give it what am I gonna say? I'm gonna give it a two upside down crosses on tongues, or was it 666s? I'm getting my demon possession
It
things.
was a upside down cross on her lower lip.
Okay, that's what I thought. Upside down cross on a lower lip. As I thought about it more, I kept saying, "Is it 666? Am I getting this confused with the plethora of demon possession movies and devil?" I sometimes do that. Uh,
They all mesh together at some point.
do mesh together. The only ones that stay separate for me are the Exorcist films. A lot of the other films all blend in my brain. I'm sorry for people out there. There's so many of them, and I've seen so many of them. This is one you can happily say that if you haven't seen, you may want to skip unless you are just curious. Our conversation did go into a lot of details about the film, and you should definitely always watch the film, whether you want to take our word for it or not. We will not discourage anyone ever watching any of these films. As you know, we have found some elements that are good and some that are really bad. And then you can always make up your own mind to watch it by reading reviews about it and reading a little bit more research about it. But from all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we hope that you've enjoyed us having a conversation about this movie. We love to take a time out of our schedule to talk about some of the films that are less talked about, as well as those that are talked about in the wrong way. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we hope you've enjoyed this conversation. And please make sure to like, share, follow, do that thing you do with your favorite podcast, your favorite podcast app, Spotify, or YouTube. Please make sure to also check out our other podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which delves deep into all the great Hammer Studio films of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And if you are a supporter, please make sure to check out our Patreon page, where you can check out our Patreon exclusive podcast, Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. From all of us here, we hope you have a pleasant day, and please, please, please stay away from those exorcisms. You never know what's going to take you over or transfer into you. Thank you so much and have a great day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.